Hello everyone, today is October 16th, 2018. Welcome to your news update. We're going to talk a lot about local issues in Queens. Pretty much all of these stories have an impact here in Queens. I know there's one that's pretty much a citywide issue that we're going to discuss today. But yes, today we're going to talk about MS-13. This story may not be mentioned on Channel 7 because I only found it from New York 1 News. We're also going to talk about bus shelters that are being in bad shape citywide here in New York City. We're also going to talk about an issue in Jackson Heights that my girlfriend actually brought up. Thank you, Laura, for bringing it up. I appreciate that. And we're going to talk an interesting story about Michael Cohen's damage to Queens because he's damaged Queens transportation-wise. Yes, I'm talking about Donald Trump's former lawyer. We'll talk about him. And we're going to talk about Scott Stringer and my Assemblywoman, Nilly Rosick, talking about expanding Long Island Railroad service to make it more easier here in Northeast Queens. So let's get to our first article today. And we're going to talk about MS-13 gang members. What happened here? And unfortunately, I have to talk about this because this happened right at the Jamaica Long Island Railroad Station. So the NYPD released information yesterday morning regarding this story. Police say these two men, 25-year-old Danny Cruz and 24-year-old Maxwell Martinez, stabbed the 17-year-old victim near Sutphin Boulevard and 94th Avenue near the Jamaica Long Island Railroad Station back in August. The victim was taken to a nearby hospital. Police say the men should be considered armed and dangerous. So, here's what you need to do. If you see these men, you either have to dial 911, call 1-800-577-8477, or text CRIMES, and then enter tip 577 or visit nypdcrimestoppers.com. So once again, here is their mugshot. They are around Queens. We just have to be careful because I'm assuming this incident took place at night, but it just comes to show that, again, our wonderful mayor, who I'm going to leave on the screen right now. You're seeing the laughing lunatic on your screen right now. You know, this is what I mean. All right, this fool is letting all these criminals run around, and that's why we are screwed right now. And it just proves that he doesn't like our borough. He absolutely has an agenda against Queens. And this is what we're going to talk about today in this video. We're going to talk about stories that are impacting Queens locally. So this next story is very disturbing to hear about. So 1,400 New York City bus shelters cordoned off for inspection after one partially collapsed. So what happened here was, and first of all, I want to thank Anthony Johnson from Channel 7 News for first talking about it this morning, because that's how I found out because I'm an Eyewitness News insider, so I get these stories when they come in my inbox and the emails. So pretty much Anthony Johnson brought up this story, and I'm surprised Anthony Johnson actually did a story in New York City today. He's normally the New Jersey reporter for Channel 7, but thank you for bringing this up, and thankfully I found this on New York 1's website. But here's what New York 1 talked about. About 1,400 bus shelters across New York City have been cordoned while a private company conducts safety inspections, a spokesperson said back last night. It comes after a shelter on Staten Island partially collapsed earlier this month. The company, J.C. Decox, a city transportation contractor, said it anticipates most of the shelters will reopen within a week. J.C. Decox said no one was injured when the Staten Island bus shelter partially collapsed on October 5th because of corded bolts. That shelter was reportedly located on Van Dozier Street and Victory Boulevard. The company said a previous franchise installed about 2,500 of the shelters in 2006. 3% of the first 1,000 shelters J.C. Decox inspected were revealed to have cordon bolts, but those have been since repaired and reopened, the company had said. J.C. Decox said it will also inspect 1,000 new shelters. Bus riders deserve the best level of service, whether it will be on the bus or when waiting in a bus shelter. DOT expects JCD Cox to keep the city's bus shelters safe and well maintained. We will hold the contractor accountable for making these fixes expeditiously. We agree to the current actions and will monitor to make sure that the shelters are inspected and return to operation in a safe manner, the Transportation Department said in a statement. And I excuse the background noise, everyone. My dad accidentally put the SUVs on. And there's landscapers going on, so, you know, it happens. So back on track here. Commuters cannot sit in the shelters while they are cordoned off with bus services not affected. JCD Cox operates about 3,500 New York City bus shelters overall. The contractor said commuters can expect it to make any required repairs by the end of this month. So there you have it. Thank goodness. And take a look at this. The whole Staten Island controversy. And once again, I'm not going to talk about the Staten Island controversy because it's a very controversial topic, and it's even made people get into arguments about it. But we're not going to talk about that because it's not important. What we are going to talk about is, once again, this story that, once again, if my girlfriend Laura is watching this, I want to thank you for bringing this up to my attention, because she actually told me about this last week, but this was on the New York One website. So I'll read it, because she's a little bit, she's actually educated about this. I give her credit, and that's what I love about my girlfriend. So we're gonna read this together, and if she's watching, she'll listen to what I have to say, because normally when she brings up important stuff to me, she'll talk about it. But here's what is going on. Queens residents had a chance to voice their opinions to the Department of Transportation at a meeting last night about pedestrian and bicyclist safety on Northern Boulevard. Some changes were made to the road after a child was hit and killed back in 2014. But some say those changes created more traffic tie-ups and didn't make the area safer. One resident said, "I would like to see all the street light systems to have a cycle, meaning that the red lights would be for the drivers, but then the walking signal would be for the pedestrians. I like to see bike lanes, but that's not a unanimously held position at this table," said another resident. Nicole Garcia of New York City Department of Transportation said, "Since 2014, we've added over a dozen concrete islands to shorten crossing distances for seniors and school children. We've added other traffic calming elements." According to the DOT, 6 people were killed on Northern Boulevard in 2017, and 4 were killed so far this year. So, pretty much, I want to see if we can play this video. Maybe we will, and we'll watch it together. So I will try to turn, let's see if I can play it, and if I can't, I apologize. Yeah, I can't. Let's see. Hopefully let me play it. Alright, good, we can watch it.
Con 4 decesos por accidentes de tránsito en lo que va del año, la ciudad quiere evitar que Northern Boulevard sea llamado el nuevo Boulevard.
I apologize, everyone. This is in Spanish. I know somebody who would be able to understand this. So, let's see if we can pull up any other situations regarding Northern Boulevard. Let's see. Any news? Because let's see if anything came up here. Yeah, here we go. There was actually a story about it from Channel 7. I'll go with my source. I normally go with Channel 7. Yes, so we actually have a video. Okay, this is the area that Laura was mentioning to me, that this area, and I'm very familiar with it, Queens Plaza and Grand Central Parkway.
Changed to a major road in Queens following several deadly crashes. Some are now calling...
I apologize about that, everyone. The echoing happens, but... Yeah, she was mentioning to me it was somewhere in Jackson Heights, and she was mentioning somewhere around 74th Avenue. So, pretty much... I know what they're talking about here, because this concerns me as well, because this is This is the Q66 bus route, alright? And I'm bringing this up because the Q66 bus route is very necessary in case, let's say, the 7 train's out of service and you need an additional option to get around. Yes, and a lot of memorials. They're soliciting ideas to how to make this 4.5 mile stretch between Queens Plaza and the Grand Central Parkway safer. And guess what Polly Trompenberg said? The ideas are open-ended, but I think you can look to Queens Boulevard to see the kind of things they can do. And look what happened on Queens Boulevard. The city reduced the speed limit. They also removed lanes of traffic and added longer crosswalk times and pedestrian islands. And I have noticed this too in the past couple of years by the Kew Gardens train station. We used to never have the pedestrian island by 78th Drive. We used to never have it. But now you're seeing here that it's very important that we have these necessary steps. But I'm just annoyed that you know, it's happening. I hate to see it happening. You know, this is literally deja vu of no, I mean, this is deja vu of what we had to deal with Queens Boulevard all these years. Yeah, and if you missed any meetings, if you couldn't go to the one back on Monday, there was one last night, New York 1. I just read the article. There will be 2 other meetings regarding the safety of Queens Boulevard, Northern Boulevard. So there will be another meeting coming up the next 2 Mondays. This Monday, October 22nd, there will be another meeting at PS 151 at 5005 31st Avenue in the Astoria Woodside area. It will be between 6:30 and 8:30 p.m. And then there'll be another meeting at PS 166 at 3309 35th Avenue in the Astoria Long Island City section of Queens. It'll be again from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. So if you live in this area and you need to talk about what's going on, I urge everyone, please, you know, go to these meetings, because if you live in these areas around Northern Boulevard, you need to speak up. Even though, like, let's say this was occurring on Union Turnpike, I would be going to the meetings to talk about Union Turnpike. And again, we really haven't had that many issues on Union Turnpike this year in Fresh Meadows. But if this was happening on Union Turnpike, I would be speaking up. You should be doing the same thing as well. So those and once again, thanks to my girlfriend Laura for bringing up the story. I appreciate her doing that. Before we talk about what happened with Todd Stringer today, I'm going to talk to you all about something very interesting regarding what's going on here. You know what? Let's talk about the 7 line here, because it's going to impact the... I know it's going to be longer than I expected, but this is very important. Let's read what's going on here. Rows of yellow cabs stripped of their once prized medallions sit parked illegally at a Shutter Queens gas station, ditch government sources say, by their former owners, the disgraced and bankrupt taxi king Gene Friedman and one of his former business partners, Michael Cohen, President Trump's estranged former lawyer. City Councilman Dan Dorm of Queens said this is a blight on the community and it needs to end. Residents say cabs have been rustling away in this taxi graveyard along a block of Northern Boulevard between 71st and 72nd Streets for more than a year. But that the number of abandoned taxis has surged in the last few months. Some of the taxis are vandalized and many of them are unlocked. Councilman Dorm said, "They're here all day long, you know. People could sit in there, they could be doing drugs in there, there could be crimes going on in there. A whole bunch of things that could be happening here." Properties owners listed in the city's records as Sync Realty, a real estate company with ties to Freeman. Sources say it's fallen into financial ruin, just like Freeman, who once operated the city's largest taxi fleet. Freeman's empire collapsed. The value of taxi medallions plunged amid competition from companies like Uber and Lyft, and was battered by criminal and legal problems. Michael Cohen gave up his medallions last month. There were 16 of them that he owned. statement demanded by the city after he pleaded guilty back in August to tax evasion. The sources say several of the ditched taxis were once his. Councilman Dorm said, "This is Trump's dump on Jackson Heights." I'm sure one of my friends would get that joke right now. He knows who he is, but... But Dorm said he has had next to no luck in getting the lot cleared. "Work with us. You can't leave this like this," he said. "I get it, but this is unacceptable in Jackson Heights." The buildings department slapped the property owner with $5,280 in fines for the illegally storing taxi cabs, but the company says those fines have yet to be paid. Attorneys for Friedman and Cohen did not respond to calls and emails from New York One. Residents say they have grown tired of the taxi dumping ground. One person who lives in the neighborhood said, "I would love to see this definitely gone and more space for people to maybe move to and maybe have something to back up in here. Something that's less of a bright yellow eyesore." Yeah, and this is the video that came along with it. I'm not going to play it, but... Man, how many of these taxis have been left abandoned here? I mean, I just don't understand what's been going on. Unfortunately, President Trump screwed Queens in a way. I know he did, but this is what I mean. So before we get to Scott Stringer's thing, MTA to add trains to 7 line during 7 trains shutdown. The MTA will add rush hour trains to the 7 line once the L train shuts down between Brooklyn and Manhattan for 15 months of repair starting in April, and separately increase service on the 6th line at the same time. So here's what's going to happen. This happened back in September, so I didn't really find out about this till now. MTA said back on, I have the date right here, I'll pull it up. This article was published on the 24th. Okay, so this was, just confirming it right now. Alright. Back on September 24th, it'll add 14 extra round trips to the Flushing line to ease ridership demand and address the expanded influx of passengers who have taken the L between Brooklyn and Manhattan. 5 extra round trips will be added to the 7 line starting between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. on weekdays. 9 extra round trip trains will be added to the 7 starting between 5:30 and midnight on weekdays. Transit officials said riders will need the extra trains at Queens Court Square Station, which is expected to be busy transfer hub for L train commuters during the shutdown. By adding 7 service on that line to prepare for more customers, we're making sure that once the tunnel work begins, Brooklyn riders can get to where they need to go when Queens customers get the service that they depend upon, said New York City Transit President Andy Byford. Separately, the 6th train will also receive 2 additional rush hour trips in April. So once again, to clarify, all these changes will start in April of 2019 once the L train shuts down. And I'm going to promise everybody, once we know the exact date and once I get the information regarding the L train shutdown next year, me and Matt Camper will cover it along with Jason Anthony Pinheiro, and we'll talk about this because there needs to be a lot of coverage on this L train shutdown starting next year. But anyhow, the 2 extra 6 trains will be 1 extra round trip starting between 7 a.m. and 7:30 a.m. on weekdays, and 1 extra trip starting between 5 p.m. and 5:30 p.m. on weekdays. When L trains stop running in Manhattan next year, so will car and truck traffic on 14th Street directly above the subway line. The city says that from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week, only buses will be allowed on the crosstown streets with a few exceptions. And this is what my fellow colleague and peer, Omar Finiera, talks about at the transit meetings. He's talking about the M14L that's going to be starting in April. And I will be keeping an eye on that, and I will try to head down there and take a look at the M14L for myself, because I'm kind of curious to see what 14th Street's going to look like when cars are going to be banned, because I want to see what it's going to look like. It's got me curious now. So I'll make it a, you know what, 2019 priority besides Road to Babylon, because I've told my friends I want to go to Babylon next year and do a park video. Next year, I'm making this a priority too. If I can get over there in April, I'll make it a priority. There's going to be a documentary about this. I can't wait to see what this documentary is going to be about, but... Alright, 80% of L train riders are expected to shift to other subway lines. This will be interesting. Andy Byford also said back in June, 80 buses per hour accommodating 4,200 riders. 80 buses per hour will form an intense bus shuttle across the Williamsburg Bridge. The MTA says its new ferries will also help, carrying up to 1,190 riders on 8 boats per hour. And they talk about the M42 being slow. I've been on the M42 once. I took it from Grand Central to Bryant Park, and I agree with that. I'm not going to read it today, but I know about it. Again, I've taken the M42 once, and it was a miserable ride. It was completely miserable, just trying to get to Bryant Park. But, yeah, that's where I wanted to make my point on. So now we're going to get to this presentation in just a second. So I will get to the intro of it from AM New York. So today, Scott Stringer, the New York City Controller, talked about Queens. He actually talked about Queens today. So let's talk about what he said. Earlier today, Controller Scott Stringer said, with the growth of outer borough residents and jobs, and amid the height of a subway crisis, the MTA must overhaul its railroad service in order to better serve New York City commuters, Controller Scott Stringer said back on Tuesday. Mr. Stringer, backed by other Queens officials, including my Assemblywoman here in Fresh Meadows, Nilene Rosick, released a new report endorsing an idea that has been floated around the New York City transit fair for years. Cut Metro North and Long Island Railroad fares for city commuters in order to maximize the system capacities and cut travel times for some of the 1.4 million outer borough residents who live near the railroad stations only need to travel within the city. Mr. Stringer said today, the fact that we are seeing a sea change in our economy, the economy is growing in these boroughs. Mr. Stringer today held a press conference outside the Murray Hill Long Island Railroad Station here in Queens. Mr. Stringer also was quoted saying, the transit desert mentality is alive and well because we can't connect two systems that are literally running parallel, one for the wealthy people in Westchester and the second is a system that's decaying for the rest of us. The city controller said, exorbitant costs of the railroads have created a classiest two-tiered transit system for wealthy suburban commuters, particularly, let's say, Westchester or the Babylon branch, while city residents are forced to save money and stuff into overcrowded subway trains and slow, unreliable buses. He's calling for the MTA to set Long Island Railroad and Metro North fares for trips within the city at subway and local bus rates, now $2.75, provide free transfers to those commuters between subways and buses, and to run more service to 38 railroad stations in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens. The program would cost the MTA $50 million a year to operate, according to the report. And this is what I don't get. This is a bipartisan issue, and here's what Joe Lotus said today. Strong opposition to the plan, citing his financial struggles at the agency. He also disagreed that there was enough spare railroad capacity for additional riders. This is just crazy. Joe Lotus said today, we received Controller Stringer's report late this morning and we will review it. Particularly the assertions about excess capacity, which we disagree. The MTA is not a financially self-sustaining organization, and for the recommendations of the city controller to be implemented, a subsidy is required. It is fiscally irresponsible to make a transit benefit recommendation and identify a source of funding, especially given the MTA's massive financial needs as outlined by Controller Napoli's report. And this is what Stringer said. The average Long Island Railroad train heading into Penn Station each morning rush hour is 79% full with 233 empty seats. And each evening rush, the average Long Island Railroad train is 75% full with 282 available seats. And this is something interesting here. The MTA is currently running a similar 10-station pilot program called the Atlantic Ticket, which offers reduced fares for city commuters near Long Island Railroad Station. A one-way ticket, which was set at $5, a 51% discount from the current peak fare of $10.25, and 33% reduction from the off-peak of $7.50. So let's see this presentation for a second here. So pretty much this is an in-depth report. I'm not going to get into it, but the PDF file. And the only thing I want to say right now is that I wish we could just have more frequent service here in Queens. That's all I'm asking. I mean, if we could have more service, that would be great. I know I tweeted earlier, oh, we need Queens Village, we need Hollis. Well, logically, in the short run, and I will go to the map right now. I'll show you all something very important here that needs to be discussed. And we'll have this discussion again to make my final point, because it'll be easier. If you want to see this article and click on the link, because here's how you can click on the link. You can click it right here and it'll take you to it if you're on a desktop. I'll leave the link in the description below for the AM New York article. I do apologize, everyone. I meant to get the LARR map here. Do apologize, everyone. We're not on that. We're on the wrong schedule. Happens. Okay, let's go to Port Washington. And again, I've mentioned this to Vicky Palladino. I have mentioned this numerous times to everybody. I've even mentioned this to Mocha 18. And this is how I think it should work out. Alright, so let's zoom in and let's have a rational discussion here, alright? In the short run, and I'm going to illustrate this again. See what we have to deal with at Auburndale westbound off-peak, okay? Pretty much, we get half-hourly service in the morning, right? In the morning. But take a look at this. 10:29, right? Here's Murray Hill down here. Murray Hill's right here, right? Here's Murray Hill. You have to wait an hour to go westbound. And then take a look at this. This is discrimination. Why can't Auburndale, Murray Hill, and Broadway get half-hourly service at all times? It's a simple request. The railroad should be doing that in the short run if they really want to fix the problem in the short run. And I think it'll work out for everybody. And if your trip gets delayed, you know, too bad. Too bad. Deal with it. Alright? I don't want to hear any crying. Alright? Yeah. Why are we stopping and making all local stops at Broadway, Murray Hill, and Auburndale? Yeah. Yeah, that's how snobs act. They'll complain about it on that Port Washington branch. But do you realize that Auburndale is still a blue-collar area? Same with Murray Hill. And you are basically discriminating against these people. And that rider who was at Murray Hill, who has to take the Long Island Railroad, because again, he has no choice and he needs the rec service to Penn to get over to the 2 train, I can understand, you know, what he has to deal with. You know, he's not getting half-hourly service off-peak. And take a look at this. Here's more discrimination. Alright, eastbound service. I mean, take a look at this. Off-peak. It's only off-peak. Why can't they make it stop local all times? That's how it should be. So I'm going to highlight these 3 stations right here. Let's highlight them, everyone. Make it better so you all can understand what I am talking about here. Illustrated, alright? Because then you all can understand what we have to deal with. Make it bigger so you all can understand. These 3 stations need to have local service eastbound and westbound at all times. Once again, Murray Hill, Broadway, Auburndale. And you know why I am mentioning these 3 stations. Because these 3 stations, Murray Hill, Broadway, and Auburndale, Broadway has a parking lot. Auburndale, and I've mentioned this to everybody again, and again, I work at Osnum. I don't mind if you're parking by Osnum, you want to walk 10 minutes for train service, fine, do that. I don't care. It doesn't impact the residents. But what I'm trying to say here is that the workers at Osnum, and they agree with me on this, I've showed them the schedules, that it's not fair. It's completely not fair. We deserve better at Auburndale. Mocha 18, I know you're watching this video right now. You deserve better at Murray Hill. And that's why, in the short run, and I'm going to say this again, we all need to speak up, and we all need to have our service local again. It used to be local until something happened. Alright? Yeah, well, don't forget, Northeast Queens is a desert. Alright? And that's where I'm going to end my point. So that's going to wrap it up. I've made my points. Once again, I don't want to read Scott Stringer's report to you all because it's just too in-depth. If you want to see me read the poll, let me know in the comments. Not the poll, on the report. And I'll do a video on that separately if you guys want to see that. If you don't, that's alright. Because I don't have to, go out of my way. Because it'll just be, a little inconvenient here. But I'm sure Matt Camper will read it. Knowing him, and I know him very well, he'll probably do a video about it. And if he does, I will put a card there if he somehow does make a video right now. So if you're seeing it as this video is uploaded, then good. So that's going to wrap it up. Thank you all for watching. Until the next one, please take care.